Good to see you, and
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time. So you've been to Korea fairly recently, and we'll hear about that. And I want to start with a question, please, Jean. What expectations did you have of Korea before you went there?
Oh, very high expectations, of course.
Hmm.
Um, so I actually was a little bit obsessed with Korea, and I still find it very interesting culturally, and so I watched quite a few Korean dramas. So by
Hmm.
the time I went, I actually felt that I had a fairly good expectation of the
Hmm.
culture. So I wasn't really surprised by anything.
Mm. Let's know some of the facts. How long did you stay there, Jean? Where did you stay, and what did you
So
do?
this was a very short notice trip, and
Hmm.
it wasn't my ideal holiday to Korea by any means.
Hmm.
So my son was traveling back from Europe, and he happened to be having a stopover in Seoul. So I thought, oh, well, I'll just go up maybe a week or so earlier, and so I
Hmm.
can rendezvous with him and have a few days with him in Seoul. So I went in mid-August, which
Hmm.
is not the best time to visit Korea because of the heat. But I knew it was going to be hot and I was expecting it to be hot.
Mm.
The Air New Zealand flights to Seoul, they arrive quite late at night. So although I had done a lot of research on how to get to my hotel, because bear in mind I was traveling alone, so
Right.
I was a little bit stressed about that. So I knew how to navigate the subway and how to get to the hotel. But
Hmm.
because it was so late at night, I still felt a bit anxious about that. But
Mm.
on the flight over, I was speaking to a New Zealander who's teaching in Korea and had been there for 4 years. And she said to me, just get a taxi. They're so cheap.
Right.
She said they hardly even have Uber because the taxis are so cheap. So that's
Mm.
what I did. As soon as I got there, I already had a T Money card from a Korean colleague. So I
Mm.
loaded up my T Money card at the convenience store in the airport and called a cab. And
Ah,
honestly, once you figure out the subway system in Seoul, it's like the keys to the city. You can go anywhere incredibly cheaply, incredibly efficiently. So
mm.
once I was there and once I knew I was in my hotel, I could navigate myself from that moment.
Oh, that's good to hear. Jean, I'll share some photographs that you've given me. I'll share the screen, and maybe you could say something about each photograph and
Sure.
what they depict. So, here we are. This looks good.
So that's me at Gyeongbokgung Palace in
Uh-huh.
Seoul, which is the biggest royal palace in Seoul. There's five altogether. There's
Right.
another shot also of Gyeongbokgung Palace without me in it.
Uh-huh.
Um, so
Yes.
I went to all of the palaces. They're
Did you?
absolutely stunning, and they're incredibly cheap to visit. I
Right.
bought one of the, I think there's a 5 pass booklet, so you can get entry to all of them. And you
Mm.
can hire traditional Korean hanbok to wear, and then you
Right.
get admission for free. But honestly, it was so hot. I wasn't quite up to that on this particular trip. So I need to go back.
Right.
So
Right. And
that's another view from Gungbuk
another view.
Palace.
Oh, that's a just shows the contrast between ancient and modern, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
also shows you how, although Seoul itself is an incredibly populous, bustling, modern city, there is an enormous amount of mountains in South
Hmm.
Korea. There's a lot of natural areas to explore, a lot of national parks.
Right.
I particularly want to go back and do some hiking. So I won't be going back in August next time. Oh, no, this
Right.
is the National Museum of Korea. And one of the things I didn't expect was how good the museums are in Seoul.
Uh-huh.
So again, it's quite a good thing to do if you do find yourself there in August, because obviously the museums are air conditioned, but the museums are just stunning. And I don't think you appreciate how developed the Korean culture was. even because that it really was the secret kingdom in many ways, and the Western countries almost had to force Korea to open up to trade with the West. But you go to these museums and you see amazing plans of the palace, so incredibly advanced architecture and astronomy, and the fact they developed their own written language. And that's going back centuries and centuries, and beautiful silks and jewelry and the systems of governance, and training people to work in the civil service. Incredibly advanced. So it's a really interesting place to go culturally and historically as well. So, and this is the forecourt of the National War Museum, and I went there the day that my son and his girlfriend went up to the DMZ, and I don't know why, but I just didn't really feel like going up to look through binoculars into North Korea, because it's quite a sad situation, that DMZ. But I went to the War Memorial Museum, and of course, as well as the historic wars, of course, the most recent one was the Korean War, when the North invaded the South, and the South was really pushed back to the extreme corner of the country until the UN forces led by the Americans came to their assistance. But this is commemorating the New Zealanders who fought in the Korean War. And there's, if you can probably zoom in later, but there was 45 New Zealanders died and about 80 were injured. And when you look at the memorial for the Americans, there was thousands and thousands of casualties in that war. And it's not that long ago.
Yes.
Oh, and this is the COEX Mall and the Starfield Library. So there's all these huge floor-to-ceiling columns of books. It's an absolutely stunning space.
Wow.
Plus, there's quite a good shopping mall attached if you want to go to see that. And this was, so because I said I had a short time span and I was traveling on my own, so for most of that, but I did go to Suwon, which is about an hour outside of Seoul, and it's famous because it's a UNESCO heritage site. It's got this amazing fortified wall that goes for miles. There's also a very good cultural village there, and this was the food market. This is one of the stalls in the food market. So that's a really good place to go if you only have a short period of time.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Jean. Jean, any enduring memories that you have?
Well, I probably told you a lot of them. As I said, I thought the museums were fabulous. The food, of course, everyone goes to Korea expecting fantastic food, and that you can certainly find that. I thought it was an inexpensive holiday. Once you're there, obviously, if you choose to stay in the top hotels and you go to maybe Western style restaurants, it would be more. But if you're happy to eat local food, really inexpensive. Public transport, really inexpensive and very, very efficient. And just these amazing, beautiful palaces, beautiful gardens, lovely people. So yeah, I absolutely enjoyed it. And for me, it was my taste of Korea, but I'm already planning to go back. I'm not sure exactly when, but I would like to climb Mount Bukhansan, which is it means, I think, mountain north of the Han River. And from there, it's beautiful walks, lovely, lovely trees, little temples tucked away, and then you actually look back into Seoul itself. So I'd love to do that. I want to go to Busan. I want to go to Jeju Island. So there's still a lot to see.
There's a lot more to see.
Go back at least one more time.
Oh, that's great, Jean. Any advice to New Zealanders planning to go to Korea?
I think if you know basic please, thank you,
Right.
and goodbye, I think that's always a good thing to do. I think a lot of Koreans, especially younger ones in Seoul, do speak very good English, but
Hmm.
I think they're quite shy to speak English. And
Hmm.
I was equally shy to try and speak Korean, but we managed. Uh,
Yes.
and I know this will sound a bit odd, but honestly, I would watch a couple of Korean dramas,
Right.
not necessarily
Right.
the romance ones, but
Hmm.
just to give you a sense of the culture
Yes.
and to stop you making mistakes like potentially, for example, wearing your shoes into somebody's home,
Mm.
just not showing respect to elderly people on the subway, or just basic courtesy, I think.
Mm. Oh, that's great. Jean, kamsahamnida. Thank you very much for your time.
You're